And I'm going, I'm dead. I'm actually dead. And the next thing I know is, wham, I'm in the universe. And here I am in the middle of the universe. And I'm watching things move fast. I'm watching it being created. The moons, the planets, the asteroids, the whole works. And it's just beautiful to watch all this creativity going on. And it was really interesting because sometimes a planet was hit by a moon or an asteroid or something, broke up the million pieces, and then those pieces were used to create something else. So even if you destroy something, it becomes something else, created back and forth. And I thought that was really neat. And then that's when the voice actually said, is there anything you want to know? And I said, yes, I'd like to know when and where I was created. And whammo, I was in a white sphere of light.
My guest today is Greg Thompson, who can remember incidents that happened in his life as young as 4 months old. He's had two NDEs, and in the second one, he actually asked the question, where did my soul originate? And was given the answer. So, Greg, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is going to be an amazing conversation because you have had two NDEs and they kind of link to each other. So I guess I'm going to ask because I know that you connected with spirit very early in your life. What was your life like before you had that first NDE in 1986?
Oh, wow. Well, the spiritual world's been with me since I was born, basically. So I've always had a connection with it. But the 1986 situation was something different. It actually very, very different. Um, I knew better than what I did that day, and that's getting in a car and driving while drunk. That's I swore I would never, ever, ever, ever do that. And yet I did that one night. And my spirit guides were with me at the time, and they were telling me, no, 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 don't get in the car. No, 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 don't do that. And I did it anyway. So there's a lesson learned there. You know, if you know something is trying to tell you, you might want to listen to what they have to say, even if it's,
No kidding.
just if it's your own conscious and something like that. So
So do you hear your spirit guides? How do you know that they're communicating with you? How does that work for you?
uh, when I was very young, they talked to me, and I talked back to them. So that's another thing that you might want to think about when you're dealing with kids. If they're talking and pretending to talk to somebody that's not there, maybe they are talking to somebody who's there. Uh,
Not just a little imaginary friend.
little imaginary friends. Yeah, but yeah, they talk to me basically through telepathy. Uh,
Oh, okay. Just
and
like on the other side for most NDEers.
Yeah, and they also they do have a physical way of contacting me. They can actually put their hand, they can touch my shoulders and push down slightly, and it's warm. And when that happens, that's like danger, danger, be careful, danger. And they've done that
So
sort of.
how did you come to understand that that was them and that was the message of danger?
Well, that's a good question. I have to stop and think about it for a second. I think really it came about the fact that well, they have another way of communicating they've always done is that they can come along the right side of my face and kind of touch it like, we're here. Okay. So they can get my attention by just doing that, just come by going, we're here. If they have something more such as, danger, then the next thing that happens is I'll feel the breeze coming down the sides and it warms up and touches my shoulders. And so, yeah,
That's incredible. I've never heard anybody have an experience quite like that with their spirit team.
yeah. Well, they know how to find me.
They know how to find you. All right, so do you want to share your first near-death experience?
Sure, I can do that. I'll try to keep it down to a reasonable amount of time. Because I have a tendency to talk a little bit too much. So let me know if I'm doing that.
No, no, I'm sure it's going to be great.
Okay. In 1986, I got promoted to a new job in a phone company. And one of my cohorts got my old job, and I actually became their team leader, and which was all perfectly fine. but that person decided they wanted to celebrate. And they were inviting everybody they knew to come to the local bar and have a drink with them, on the house. That bothered me a little bit right off the bat because I've been at that place before and they love to push drinks really strong. Uh, I was about an hour, hour and a half late getting to the meeting, to the bar. And when I got there, there were 3 drinks on the table. And it tells you that something's wrong. What happened if somebody, and there was like 30 people there in this party, if anybody orders a drink, everybody gets another drink, whether you ask for it or not. So they're just pushing those drinks through there. So I got there, I gave my little spiel about him, glad that he got the job and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to sneak back out. But I tried to do that, and they said, no, you can't stay. So-and-so's not here yet. So-and-so's not here yet. So I sat down, which was a mistake, because then I sat there and I was sipping on the drink. And after, well, let's see, probably about 1 o'clock in the morning when it closed, I still had 3 drinks on the table. And I'd been drinking all the time I was there. I got up and thought, okay, well, time to go home. And I got up and realized, well, maybe not. That it was kind of I was drunk. No way around it. I'm drunk. And so I got in the car, and the office was only about a block away. So I thought I'd park the car over there and then take a taxi home. And so I went over there and I pulled into the driveway of the garage, and it dawned on me, well, that won't work too well because every space in the parking lot is assigned to somebody. So I'd have to come back in by 5 o'clock in the morning to move my car back out if I parked it there, so they could park. And I thought that's too much to ask for. I need to go sleep. So I decided to drive home, and my guides were kind of doing the thing like that. And I said, well, I'll drive slower than I should. I'm sure the cop would be interested in that, but if I drive slow, it'd be okay. And so I did. And then I got on the 405 freeway, had to go about a mile on that and then take an exit that would take me east on 520. This is all in Seattle, or actually in Bellevue across the lake. And so I start taking that exit off, and I somewhere along the line, I didn't make it all the way around the corner back over to the 520 highway. I found myself car going down a hillside and then going back up. And I realized I'm in the brush between the exit and the freeway and the highway that's I'm headed toward. I got onto the highway and I tried to stop real fast. I think I hit the wrong pedal, went faster, and went across the medium divide between the two two highways, one going east, one going west. And I turned the car to stop before I had the car stop, and the car rolled multiple times over. It finally stopped, and when it had stopped, I left my body, and I flew upward. I can't remember, fly might not be the right word, but I was moving upward toward a light above me. I thought, and then everything around me had disappeared. It was just black. And I was moving toward this light, and I felt the warmth and love of something above me. And I thought, oh, this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. Is not what I should be doing right now. I should be going home. And I'm trying to think this through, and it became obvious pretty fast that I had no control over what was happening. And as I got closer and closer, the unconditional love, as we all know who've experienced it, became really very strong. And I was moving into that area. There were 2 spirits. They're not my spirit guides, but there were 2 spirits that were floating around with me at that time. And one of them put on a face as it came around me and said, "Why are you here?" It mouthed it. "Why are you here?" And I didn't know what it was talking about. And we kept moving closer and closer. And the love was stronger and stronger and stronger as I got closer to it. And then all of a sudden, there was this sudden consternation above me and everything kind of stopped. And then the word no was yelled out real loud, and I was thrown back into my body. All right. And that's when I realized that things weren't quite right. The car was upright, the headlights were on, the radio was on, but we're not moving. And I thought, this is a little odd, very little odd. And so I I got out of the car and took a look around, and basically the car had rolled multiple times. All the windows were broken on it. Uh, that's when I decided I better go back and turn off the engine because it was still running, and there may be gas that spilled somewhere. And that took care of that situation. The police showed up shortly after that, and I went to see a doctor who took a blood test and also uh, patched up my eyebrow. There was a deep cut in the right eyebrow. And he said, I've never seen anybody with so much luck in their life. I said, what do you mean? He said, you'll never have a scar. It's underneath your eyelash itself. Nobody will ever know that you got hit. And I said, well, there's a bump on my head too. He said, well, yeah, but you can't see that. And he said, you're the luckiest person I have seen in years in a major accident like that. So yay for our team. Everything was better. There was one thing I discovered a day later, after I got home that night. I had a roommate. He picked me up, put me back home. So that night I was basically drunk. The next night I was sober, and I thought about what did happen, what happened. And I was trying to figure it out. And it suddenly dawned on me that I had had this experience once before. We won't go into much detail about it, but when I was 9 years old, I had an experience with a car. I was standing at a crosswalk and only waiting to go across in Oregon City. And the crosswalk was well marked. It had white lines on both sides. It had a flashing yellow above saying crosswalk. Cars were coming down the hill on my left side from out of town. They were coming in at 35 miles an hour. The speed limit changed about 2 blocks away to 25 miles an hour because we're now going into a business district. And I was wearing a leather, imitation leather jacket in the style of a World War II bombardier pilot that my mother had bought me. It was brand new school year. And so I'm standing, I had zipped it up because it was a bit cold, even though it was sunny. And I'm standing there, and people started showing up on both sides of the road, waiting for a chance to get across the crosswalk, because cars would just keep on going through it anyway. We weren't paying attention to the crosswalk itself. And there was an elderly man standing behind me with a cane, and he also had his arm on his wife. And he could barely walk himself. And it's kind of important to know that. But what happened is I saw a moment where there were no cars coming. So I stepped off the curb, and immediately something picked me up on the back of my neck and took the coat and put me back on the curb as a red car shot by, and it missed me by, I could see the mirror on the passenger side just like inches away. And I was put back safely, and I'm going, what just happened? What just happened? Because I didn't jump. What happened? And I turned and looked at the old man, and he was still, hanging on to his wife, and I'm going, he couldn't have done it. There's no way. So finally I asked him, I said, Mister, did you pick me up, put me back on the curb? And he looked at me and laughed and said, no, Sonny, you jumped. You have really good reflexes. And I'm going, no, because I felt the zipper against my throat. It got cleared up, and we walked across that crosswalk, and I turned right and went down 7th Street on the other side. I got down to the next intersection, and I was a little worried about going across another one. It's a not a much used side street. I took a look at the right side for the left turn lane. There was nobody in it. I thought, okay, I'm safe. And I looked around. It seemed to be okay. So I started to take a step off. And then I took another look to the right, and I saw a red car sitting in the middle of the intersection, and a little boy about my age on the ground in front of it, motionless. And people were running out to help him. And then I heard a woman yelling, no, 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 on the left side of me. And she was coming down toward the street. And she had an apron on. And she was just yelling, no, 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 no. And I turned to look back, and the accident was gone. No red car sitting in there, no boy sitting there, nothing like that. I go, whoa, what happened? And I took to the left, and the woman was gone. And I looked back and I'm going, okay. And chill went down my back. Death has been here. Death is here. And I went on down to the grocery store that my parents owned, a couple blocks down the street, and asked them if there had been any wrecks there recently. Now, sometimes, especially even at that age, I was confused about future and past sometimes. I could see both sides, both ways. And so I asked them, they know nothing had ever like that happened. My mother realized I was shaking and crying almost. And so she calmed me down, and I went about the rest of my day. So it's kind of like, why did I have to know about a near-death situation at the age of 10, and then have another one happen in 1986? And what I know happened between the two is that when I was 17 years old, we were flipping around here. I was in college as a freshman, and I was by myself. My roommate in the dorm room was gone that night, and I was sleeping. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, I became aware I was no longer in that room. I was in what turned out to be another country. It was a cobblestone street that I was standing on that went uphill slightly at a time, and it was in the middle of an earthquake. And I found that I saw a couple come out of a building with their kids, and they were walking down the street, and the top of the building, second floor, came over and crashed and killed them. And I heard a voice say, as it ran by, saying, "Help them die." And I didn't know what they meant. Help them die. What do you mean? They're dead. And help them die. And it happened 3 or 4 times. And I finally dawned on me, what I'm supposed to do is try to help people in the area to die. And these were people who were not expecting to die. There's no record of it in any way, shape, or form, but they are put into a situation where they're dying. So I pulled up unconditional love and sent it out to all around me. And it sent out a message of pure love. You are loved. You're not alone. There are those here to help you move on in your journey. And I did that over and over again for, I don't know, for a long time. Finally, the earthquake stopped, and then I came out of it. And I was sweating. I was cold. I found out 2 days later, internet didn't exist back then. Found 2 days later in the newspaper an article about an earthquake in Turkey. And I checked out the time, and it was the same time that I was experiencing this problem in my room in the dorm. So yeah, I have that. And the only reason I knew how to do that was because of the experience I had in 1959 with the car that almost hit me, but did hit me, such a scenario. So that prepared me for everything. So 1986, when it all happened again, that's when I pieced it all together. Is what happened back in 1959. Was what was happening in
Wow.
1986.
I've never quite heard anything like this. And before you get into your biggest NDE that you had, I want to ask you a couple of questions about this because you mentioned something that I've very rarely heard anybody say, and that's that you could see things in past and future. And when you were describing this scene when you're in college and you're in the dorm and all of a sudden you're in this cobblestone road witnessing this earthquake, I was wondering if maybe it was a past life until you talked about what happened 2 days later. But I've also heard people talk about our souls having multiple incarnations at the same time. And I believe that that's possible because I've been on the other side. I know the power of what our souls are. And I was shown that only this much of this soul, like the pinky fingernail of my higher self, is in this incarnation with me right now.
Yeah.
So, based on what you know, and you've had some time to think about this, what do you think happened in that Turkey earthquake situation?
I think that was actually something I was meant to do in this life. I've done it many times, helping people die. Uh, it sounds gruesome, but a lot of people, when they're dying, it's not because they knew they were going to die. I mean, there is that, obviously, but there's situations such as a war situation where they're being shot at, the situation like this case, an earthquake. It's possible that they are unprepared to go elsewhere. And so they have found themselves in a middle spot where they aren't going forward to the next life or whatever we should call it. And they can't stay where they're at because physically they can't stay there. So they need somebody or something to interfere a little bit to let them know it's okay, that they are loved, that it, you know, it, and so that they will become aware that there are spirits around them, floating around them, trying to help them move on. So I think that's very important. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm back here is I mean, that's a minor one because there's so many, life goes on, but that's one of those things that you need to, we're all here for our brother's keeper kind of a thing, right? So if you can help out in any way, shape or form, even if it's out of this world, quote unquote, uh, it's something we should be doing.
Well, it sounds very obvious to me that you have been protected for a very special reason. And maybe that reason is to help those souls that are in need of help because of all the protection that you've had, the protection that you had when you were 9 and the car that was coming by, and then the lady who came to help you. And by the way, did you ever discover who that woman was who said no?
No, I never did. It's one of those things I'd like to know. I really would like to know
Yeah.
what
Well,
was going
someday
on.
I'm sure you will.
Maybe.
Well, it sounds like you were incredibly protected. And then here you find yourself in a situation again for a second near death experience. So, do you want to
Wow.
share that one with us?
Yeah, that one's much more interesting than anything else.
It is so interesting. And please do not leave any of the details out. Tell that in as much detail as you want because I think this is an amazing NDE.
Okay. It's 2012, and in 2012, I had got myself a new pair of moccasins, and they were true moccasins. They were not some sort of made up thing. So anytime I got a new pair, I would get a blister on the side of my foot because it's wearing my foot had to wear down the moccasin a little bit. And so I was okay with that because that's always what I had to do in the past. But then in January of 2013, the blister turned bloody. And I'm going, okay, that's not right. That's not right. So I had to find a doctor. Believe it or not, I'd never had a doctor. Well, I shouldn't say never. I'd had him when I was a kid, of course. But I had to find a doctor. And the doctor suggested I go see a foot doctor. And so I went to see the foot doctor. And he took a look at it and said, okay, it's a viral foot infection. And viral infections, at least up to that point in time, had to be manually removed. There was no medications or anything they could do or anything. They could hold it where it was so it wouldn't grow anymore. There's that capability, but they could not actually cure the problem without surgery. So I had 3 surgeries in 10 days on my right foot. The first one was, of course, the big delve into it, get as much as you could. The second one was clean up what had not been done. And the third one was, is it really done? And it took all 3 to do that. Of course, by that point in time, it means I could not walk on my right foot. So I had to learn how to walk again. And so I had to go to rehab. And while there, uh, I was given a pair of crutches and stuff and started doing the process. I've been there about 4 or 5 days trying to learn how to walk again. And they had really good food there. So I had a really nice breakfast in the morning, this one morning. And the nurse came in, since I was also a diabetic, mild one, but still a diabetic. They would give me insulin. And so she had to check my blood and such. And so she walked over to the wall on the other side of the room with her back to me, and she logged onto a computer that was attached to the wall. And she was logging in, and I had finished my food, and all of a sudden I felt a little burp kind of feel to it in my stomach. I'm going, this is weird. And it happened again, and it got worse. And I knew I was going to throw up. So I told the nurse, I think I'm going to throw up. And she said, I'll be there in just a minute. I'm looking at it and thinking to myself, I'm not sure that would be working right. And sure enough, I threw up, and I did a really good job of it. I managed to throw it all over the bed, all over the breakfast table, on the floor. And by the time that I think we got to doing it on the floor, she had pushed a button someplace, and two very large, hefty men came in, and they ripped the covers off my bed. They picked me up. They threw me into a chair that they had already put a sheet on, and they cleaned everything up and put me back into the bed and everything and left. It was kind of like going to Disneyland and some little kid had lost their ice cream cone on the floor. I've actually seen this happen. A, a, a wall opened up out of nowhere and somebody came up and they cleaned the whole mess up and they gave the kid a coupon for a new ice cream and they went back down the hole. And I thought, okay, this is kind of Disneyland-like. And the nurse came back in and said, okay, here is a teaspoon of water and here's a bag. I want you to drink the water and spit into the bag. We need a saliva of what is going on in your stomach. And so I did that and gave them just enough that they figured they had what they needed, and she left. And I was very tired, extremely tired. And I just laying there going, please just, go away, just leave me alone. And she came back a little bit later. She did something at the door. I don't know what it was. She came in and she was wearing a mask. And she said, I hate to tell you this, but you got the norovirus. And I said, the norovirus. Now, in the year before, in 2012, there was a norovirus epidemic across the United States. It's not probably well known because it basically hit old folk homes. And but here it was. Now I had it. She said, a doctor will be in shortly to tell you about what is going on with that. He's an expert on norovirus. I said, okay, fine. So she left, and I'm sitting there going, well, now, but I guess I'm going to be stuck here for a while longer. I wasn't thinking about anything more than trying to get out of this place. And the doctor showed up, and he was an expert on norovirus and pneumonia. He said they're kissing cousins. They basically both they just approach the same problem a different way. They attack the immune system. And said most humans actually die from either norovirus or pneumonia. They had some other complication, but that's the thing that kills them. And I said, well, thank you very much, thinking to myself, he's telling me really fun stories. And he goes, well, okay. I said, well, what are my chances? He said, oh, about a 40% chance. And I said, okay. And he started to leave. I said, well, wait a minute, a 40% chance of what? Living or dying? And he says, living. I said, 40% chance of living. I said, well, that's almost 50%. I guess that'd be okay. He said, well, oh, wait a minute. Now, you see, you've had 3 surgeries on your right foot. You've had, he started going down the list of things that have gone wrong in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And he said, well, it might be actually a 30% chance. I said, 30% chance of living? He said, yeah. I said, that's not good. And he said, well, I shouldn't tell you this. But he says, I will deny it if you tell anybody about it. So he denied this. It is that doctors really don't know. They really don't know. Most of the cases are elderly people. They're about ready to die. They're not there long enough to do any studies or anything on them. And he said, quite frankly, he said, one thing they have discovered, and he said, we talk about it all the time when the subject comes up, is that if you have a positive attitude toward living, you will live. If, like in your case, you've had a lot of bad luck, you might consider over the last few months, you may be completely depressed and go the other direction. And I said, I don't want to die. He said, good, keep that up. So he left. So I'm feeling better. I'm having food in the mornings and whatever. Life's going better. And then slowly but surely, one day I woke up in the morning. I realized my feet would not move. They just didn't work. I couldn't turn them. I couldn't do anything with them. They were just clumps on the bottom of my legs. And I thought, well, that's kind of bizarre. And I thought, well, maybe they went to sleep. The way your body can sometimes go to sleep when you're in the wrong position. And I do have low blood pressure, so that may be part of it. And then the next thing happened, my legs got to the point where they wouldn't work anymore. I couldn't move my legs. And then the next thing that happened was my fingers, then my hands, then my arms, then my back. It took several days for that all to take effect. And I wasn't sure really what was going on. But at that point in time, they put me on death watch. And that meant every 2 hours, day and night, a nurse would come into the room and say, Mr. Thompson, how are you doing? And I had to respond, even if it was just a grunt. And I thought, if it's a grunt, I wasn't too happy about that. So I basically, it just got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, one night, about 10 o'clock at night or so like that, I realized I couldn't move anything, that I was stuck there, and that I couldn't move at all. All I could do was blink my eyes. Everything else was stopped. So and then the nurse came in, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I knew that because they had changed shifts, and the new nurse came in around 1 o'clock. And she asked, Mr. Thompson, how are you feeling? And my response was a grunt. Said, thank you, Mr. Thompson. And she left. That was the first moment I thought, I'm dying. It's actually going to happen. And my next thought was, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to friends? What's going to happen to friends if I fast? And so I started with coworkers, which is the worst possible thing anyone could do. But I started with coworkers back in New York. I worked in Portland, Oregon, but I worked remote. So they didn't get to see me very often, maybe twice a year. I'd fly out there. They would probably do what they've done with others, is they'll have a card go around, people will sign it, send some flowers and a card to somebody. And I go, well, okay for that. And so the next question was, well, what's going to happen to friends, real good friends I've known since college days? I figured they'd probably have a celebration of life, and that would be it. So then I went to loved ones. I went to Nancy's parents. Nancy's mother was the matriarch of the family, and she controls everything, but she could not control this. So she would take it hard. Her father, Don, my birthday is on his day. We have the same birthday. And he thought I was the best thing that came along from Nancy in many, many years. And he said, he actually told me, you're the son I always wish I had. He had two girls, no boys. So he would take it hard, but both of them would probably be concerned about Nancy herself. We'd had a lot of conversations about death. It came up in weird ways, but I learned rather quickly in our relationship that she didn't believe in anything. You die, you're dead. There's no afterlife. There's nothing. You're just dead. And she'd had some friends that passed on, and she took that approach to it. And here I am now on deathbed. She would take it hard. And so I really fell apart at that point in time. I am dying, and there's nothing I can do about it. Then the strangest little things happen. There is an entity, I guess I call it an entity. There's something I call the golden sphere of souls. I've seen it twice before that night. It's a large globe of light, golden light. I mean, it's large, several feet wide. Golden energy, and it has a lot of white lights flashing in it. And each one of those lights is a soul. They're all working together as one, as a healer. And in the other two situations, I was heavily depressed at the time, and they came to tell me that I was loved. And here they are again at the end of my bed. And I thought, boy, I don't know if you can do this or not. But they started trying. They covered my feet, and my feet became warm. And it just felt so good. And I said, please, please continue. And they slowly moved up the body, warming up the body as they went. And when they got up far enough that my arms, which were lying side of the body, it was like a scanner. It went out and picked up the fingers and hands and stuff in the body as a whole. And it went right up through the through the head. And it felt so good. And then it disappeared. I could move better, all right, but I still wasn't cured by any means. And then I heard the voice in my left ear say, why are you still here? You know how to fly away. Just fly away. And it kept repeating it. Why are you still here? You know how to fly. Just fly away. And I thought, well, that's kind of a strange thing to be telling me. I thought I was going to be better. And the next thing I know is, well, no, not really. There was no guarantee about that. I'm not sure. I don't know who it was that was telling me this over and over again. I was not aware actually, I could hear a voice talking, but I became aware that I was not doing anything. My body was not doing anything. My heart wasn't working. I hear my heart all the time. I hear the thump, 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 thump kind of thing. Hiss is actually hiss sound. And it wasn't there. And it dawned on me, I think I'm dead. Because I was detached from the body, just ever so slightly. I was just like, above the body, like one head length above the body. And I'm going, I'm dead. I'm actually dead. And the next thing I know is, bam, I'm in the universe. I'm in the middle of the universe. And I've always been interested and curious about the universe and how, it's endless, but how can it be endless? Because there has to be an end. But if there's an end, there's something, you can go around and drive you crazy in that kind of context. And here I am in the middle of the universe, and I'm watching things move fast. I'm watching it being created. The moons, the planets, the asteroids, the whole works. And it's just beautiful to watch all this creativity going on. And it was really interesting because sometimes a planet was hit by a moon or an asteroid or something, broke up the moon in pieces, and then those pieces were used to create something else. So even if you destroy something, it becomes something else, created back and forth. And I thought that was really neat. And then that's when I asked, okay, because I was asked, the voice actually said, is there anything you want to know? And I said, yes, I'd like to know when and where I was created. And whammo, I was in a white sphere of light, huge, huge light. And every piece of the light out there was another soul. And we were all together as one in this big, huge light. And the joy, the absolute joy, it was fantastic. It was great. There's no words for it. It was fantastic. And I just lived with that. I just loved it. And there was anticipation. Something's about to happen. Something's about to happen. We're all going, okay, something's about to happen. Something's about to happen. And I was caught up in it. And in the middle of all that, I realized this is really a weird feeling. I feel me, but I feel all of us, as one. How can we be me, one, and me, part of large one? It was a fascinating thought. But eventually, the anticipation was met, and the white sphere we were in exploded, and we shot out across the universe, every direction. And we were free and we were creative. We were told we could be creative. And we went out and started creating things. It was fantastic. It was just lovely. And I stayed in that as much as I could. At some point in time, I don't know how long it was, because again, time doesn't work in spheres and in that kind of world. All of a sudden, I started feeling tired. I started feeling tired. I'm going, no, no, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. I want to stay here. This is fun. This is fun. And no, 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 I had to go back. Next thing I know, I'm lying down like I had been when I was in the bed. My eyes were shut, and I was aware there was light out in front of me, and there was something dark to my right side. And I thought, where am I? Am I back at the hospital bed, or am I still out in where I wanted to be, just a different spot in the universe? And I kept thinking about, well, what's going on? What's going on? And finally, this voice behind me said, well, Greg, open your damn eyes and take a look. I'm going, that's weird. And I just slowly opened my eyes, and yeah, I was back in the hospital room. And
Oh my gosh.
I looked at it going, what's this black thing? And I looked to the right. It was a preacher, uh, and a priest, actually. He had the white collar, the whole works, and he was reading a Bible. I assumed it was a Bible. He was reading a book, and he's quietly saying it. And he got done with it, and I thought, he just gave me last rites. And I'm looking at him, and he looks down and says, oh, good morning, my son. I said, hello, I can talk. I said, you never believe what happened last night. And I told him the whole story I just told you about what's going on. As I was telling it, he first looked concerned. And then as he heard more and more, he started grinning and grinning, grinning. And he was laughing when he got done with the whole thing. He says, well, you're obviously doing better now. And he started to walk away. And I said, wait a minute, why were you here? He says, oh, I was just checking on you to see how you're doing. I said, okay. And he turned, I said, wait a minute. He said, what? I said, will you let the nurse know I'm hungry? Yes, I will let her know. And he ran out of the room. In the matter of about an hour after that, the sign came down. I was no longer in on death watch or anymore, or anything like that. And people were allowed to come in. And I started getting first people that were actually worked there, the team, the technical teams and the nurses and such came in. And they all wanted to see the man who died and came back to life.
Of course they did. Oh my gosh, this is such an incredible story. And I have so many questions about what happened to you on the other side. So, can I start asking you some questions about this?
Sure.
Okay. You mentioned, first of all, that there wasn't just one universe you saw universes.
Mhm.
So, as much as you can you explain what you mean and what you experienced? I know these experiences are ineffable, so kind of hard to put words to them, but
Yeah, then I was I was shocked that I was going to touch into other universe, other pieces of universe. Well, you can't call it universe, it's multiverse. Uh, I got the impression that they were all working at different times in the sense that we know time. All right. And I don't know if that's true or not. Well, obviously, I didn't get to stick around to find out. But yeah, it was kind of like I was in this one universe, and another one that interconnected with it was running at a different time. And it's almost like, well, you can always speculate that there's a creator. And then, of course, you get into all sorts of danger when you do that. But it's almost like there's somebody's experimenting someplace out there. In my mind, that's the way I interpret it. Somebody is experimenting and creating different worlds to see how things work. Uh, I don't know if that's true or not. It's just one
well,
thought.
it kind of makes sense based on the comment you said about when you were released as the souls and you were released and they said, go create, go create, go create.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the fun part. Yeah, and why did I? Well, I guess I was supposed to experience it, but not stay there. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, that's one of the things we are here to do too. That
Is what?
in this life, we are meant to create. Uh, and I take that another step. I also think it's also to maintain.
So, what do you mean by that? To create and maintain?
I look at nature around here, and you hear it on the news every day about climate change and such like that. We humans have been really, the cancer of Earth. Uh, in my opinion. And we are not doing the right things. We should be guardians of what we have here. This is the only planet we have that we know about that can sustain our life in a physical
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
We should be kind to it. We should be blessing it. We should be nurturing it, not tearing it down and building another high-rise building or another freeway that has to go across a desert or whatever. We
Right.
we need to be kinder to it.
I don't think there's anybody watching who probably wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah.
So, in that experience, when you were asked to be shown where you originated and you were taken to that place with those other souls and you could feel the oneness with all of them, do you think that you were experiencing every single soul that existed? Or do you think that that was a soul group with a smaller or limited amount of souls around you?
I think it was a smaller group. I don't think it was all. And I can't help but think, we there's a lot of people speculating about what is going on Earth right now and what's been going on for the last, let's say, 100 years or so.
Hmm.
We have people actually been around that long. um, and it's kind of like, well, I don't know how to say this without offending somebody. Uh,
Well, just say it the best way you can because let people take it the way that they take in what resonates and let go what doesn't.
yeah, it is. I believe I'm an old soul. All right. There's just too many things in my mind that, and the way I feel that I know I'm different somehow. And in that thought, I think I'm an old soul because I do think that way. I do not like arguments. I will, if there's an argument going on, I will not participate in it unless they are being reasonable in their tone. All right. I may not, I may or may not agree with their thought, but the tone of energy provided. If it's neutral and they're willing to, this is why I believe, this is why okay, fine, I can take that. Uh, but we're also having a lot of people who don't get along with others, I guess is one way to say it. I don't want to typecast, but sometimes there are small towns. The small town mentality can be good. I mean, I grew up in Oregon City. It was less than 5,000 people when I was living there. Uh, we had one black family in the whole city. Uh, they discovered they had to change the laws on the city books because the city books were saying bad things about black people, like they can't be on the street at night. So they had to go out and change all the rules to match the changes in their society. Okay, so small towns can work fine in that kind of world. But what I have seen some of, and I don't follow social media, I find it to be a poison to me. But there's enough news on it anyway that some people feel very comfortable in their little area, their little niche of the world, and that's the way it should be. And if somebody comes in and tries to change it, they get mad. All right. To my way of thinking, I mean, that could be natural for anything, but if there's a lot of that buildup of anger about, I want it the way it was, I want it the way it was, period, bang, 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 bang. To me, that sounds like a new spirit who's just trying to,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah, and that, so you have these, I don't want to get into politics. You have these people who are basically very much one-sided about everything because that's how they feel safe. They feel safe in that world. All right. And that's possibly, I'm not saying it is, but it's possibly in many cases a situation where they are experiencing one of their first lives and they haven't quite learned yet how to get beyond that. So I'll
I
leave
think
it.
that's very reasonable because you're not saying that this is good, better, best. You're just describing differences.
Yes, yeah. I'm not, yeah. I one of my friends, well, she's moved away now. I think she's down in Arizona, I think. Um, she was very much a right-wing person, and I'm not. And we found that if we ever went into that subject matter, we ended up arguing with each other. And I don't know, I think we both came to the same conclusion at the same time because we both went at the same time and was like, if we just stay away from those things and talk about things where we have common interests, what happens? So we did that and we turned out to be best friends. We know where to put the limitation and say, okay, fine, you think that way, I think this way. We're not going to change each other's mind on that. Fine. But let's go out and have dinner together.
I
Yeah,
love that. And I think that that's a really healthy way to be.
yeah, yeah. It's the only way to be nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about this soul group that you were a part of, and I've talked a lot about soul groups in this channel, in these different videos that I've made. So can you tell me, do you have any idea of how many souls you think might have been with you in that incarnating, originating soul group that you were experiencing?
Oh, good. Thousands,
Thousands.
thousands. Yeah.
Thousands. So one of the thoughts I had when you were talking about this, about how you were completely one in that space with them. You were your
Mhm.
individual, you could feel you, but you
Mhm.
could also feel all of them.
Mhm.
I wonder if when you've been called into the place to help the people to cross over or to die,
Mhm.
if it's a calling for your soul group of the thousands that you originated with because of how you resonate together. You ever
Wow.
thought about that?
No, I never thought about that. That's a new one. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one.
No, I'm just speculating. I'm just wondering out loud if that could be why you're drawn to do that because of that intimate oneness connection that you would have with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have it with them. I have it with my spirit guides too.
Wow. Well, Greg, your stories are absolutely incredible. They're so inspiring. And I would imagine that there are people that are listening. And if you've gotten this far, I would love to hear in the comments what about Greg's story inspired you, touched you, or maybe what little golden nugget you received that you'll be implementing into your life. But if people want to connect with you, is there a way to do that?
Uh, yeah, I have a website, um, and I have a book.
Okay, well, let's talk about both of those things. So, what's your website?
The website's livingwithmyspiritguides.com.
Of course it is.
And no spaces, just livingwithmyspiritguides.com. And
Okay.
the book has the same name, Living with My Spirit Guides.
Oh, I love that title.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
So,
it's
can you give us a tip? Give everybody a tip of one thing that they can do if they want to work with their spirit guides.
be patient.
Okay.
Uh, I had a hard time with them when I was a kid. Uh, of course, I was a kid, so it's supposed to be that way. I find that they are with me all the time. And I know that's the truth of others too.
Okay. And then you've also written a book. So, tell me a little bit about your book.
My book is an autobiography, basically, broken down in different pieces. So pretty much anytime in the whole book, you'll find anyway from my memories of life before coming to Earth all the way through to current time. Uh, and I've had all sorts of experiences. I've had near-death experiences, shared death experiences. I see future events, uh, which I'm very careful now to say anything about because that sometimes leads to the wrong conclusions. Uh, but I wrote it in such a way that I tried to be, uh, the chapters are broken down into things like near-death experiences, one chapter. Okay. Another chapter is 9/11 and how that happened, what I saw. Uh, there, well, there's like 14 different chapters. There's also a timeline in the back of the book because I'm skipping around in the chapters. And so at the back of it, there's a timeline, and you can find, if you wanted to go chronologically what was happening, there's a way to look at it there. It's available in paperback, hardback, and audiobook
On Amazon, I'm guessing.
on Amazon. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure the people that are watching, they know that I like to ask lots of questions, but I'm actually not going to ask you, even though I want to, about the 9/11 because I want people to get your book and hear in the full detail of what that was. So, Greg, this has been so much fun for me. You tell your story so well, so vividly, and your experiences are amazing. And I just want to thank you so much for what you are doing, you old soul you, what you are doing to help wake up the collective consciousness. I think it is so greatly needed, and I'm guessing it's part of your purpose of being here.
It is. Thank you very much, Lori.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.